The ghost who loved candy. Have you ever heard of a ghost who didn't like scaring people at all? Not the kind that rattles chains or shouts boo in the middle of the night, but a ghost who had just one obsession. Candy. Yes, you heard that right. While other ghosts haunt old castles and dark forests, this little ghost was sneaking into candy shops, sniffing around candy jars, and dreaming of lollipops. But here's the strangest part. This ghost's love for sweets led to a night that the whole town would never forget. On the edge of town, where the streetlights grew dim and the trees whispered in the wind, there stood an old house. Its windows were dusty, its doors creaked like they hadn't been opened in years. And at night, the shutters banged as if the house itself was alive. Everyone in town whispered about it. "Don't go near that place," kids would say on the playground. "It's haunted," the grown-ups would mutter, shaking their heads. But what nobody knew was that the ghost inside this old house wasn't the kind who chased people away. He wasn't plotting scary tricks or midnight haunts. No. This ghost had something very different on his mind. Something sweet, something colorful, something wrapped in shiny wrappers that crinkled in the dark. Candy. Inside that creaky old house lived a ghost unlike any other. He wasn't tall and terrifying. He wasn't moaning through the hallways. In fact, he was, well, kind of cute, round, floaty, and always with a cheeky grin on his face. And what made him truly different? He had the biggest sweet tooth you could ever imagine. While other ghosts scared villagers, this one dreamed of lollipops the size of wagon wheels, gummy worms longer than his arms, and chocolate bars so big he could float on top of them like a raft. At night, when the town was fast asleep, the little ghost would drift silently through the streets, not to haunt, but to hunt, not for people, but for candy. If you listened very closely, you might even hear it. The faint crinkle of a candy wrapper floating in the air, followed by a soft giggle. The ghost had a hiding place, a giant candy pile, tucked into the corner of his dusty attic. Lollipops stacked like towers. Gumdrops sparkling like treasure. It was his secret stash, and he protected it with all his ghostly might. But one night, his sugary secret wouldn't stay hidden for long. Just down the street from the old house lived 3 curious kids, Sam, Mia, and little Benny. They weren't afraid of much. In fact, they loved adventure. But one chilly autumn night, they noticed something strange. The candy shop on Main Street kept having candy disappear. Whole jars of jelly beans, boxes of chocolate bars, once even a giant bucket of caramel popcorn. The shopkeeper scratched his head. No footprints, no broken locks, just gone. The kids whispered to each other. Could it be a monster, or a thief, or maybe a ghost? That night, determined to solve the mystery, the kids hid behind the candy shop. The air was cold, and their hearts thumped like drums. Suddenly, whoosh, a shadow floated across the street. It slipped right through the locked door of the candy shop. The kids' eyes went wide. They crept closer, peeking through the window, and there he was. Not a scary monster, not a thief in the night, but a plump little ghost, happily stuffing his cheeks with lollipops, wrappers floating around him like confetti. Sam gasped, Mia giggled, and Benny whispered, "That's the cutest ghost I've ever seen." But the ghost froze. His eyes went wide. He had been caught. The little ghost hovered nervously in the middle of the candy shop, his arms full of chocolate bars. For a moment, nobody moved. The kids stared at him. He stared back. Finally, with a soft sigh, the ghost dropped the candy and floated closer. I'm not here to scare you," he whispered, his voice wobbly like a breeze through the trees. I just love candy." The kids blinked in surprise. "Wait," said Sam, tilting his head. "You're not haunting the town. You're snacking on it," Mia added with a giggle. The ghost nodded shyly, his cheeks glowing pink. "You see, I used to do the whole scary ghost thing, booing at midnight, rattling chains, hiding under beds. But honestly, it got boring. Everyone just screamed and ran away. And I don't like making people cry." He floated down until he was eye level with little Benny, who was still clutching his half-eaten lollipop, but candy. The ghost sighed happily. "Candy makes me feel warm. It makes me feel not so lonely." The kids exchanged glances. This ghost wasn't dangerous. He was just sweet, literally. So Mia said, folding her arms, "You don't want to scare people. You just want friends to share candy with." The ghost's eyes sparkled as he nodded. More than anything, and that S when Sam had an idea that would change the ghost's life forever. Sam's eyes lit up as he turned to the others. "Wait a second. Halloween is tomorrow night," he whispered. "Ghost, if you love candy so much, you should come trick-or-treating with us." The ghost's mouth dropped open. "Trick-or-treating, you mean? Going door to door, and people just give you candy for free?" Mia laughed. "Yep, buckets and buckets of it." Little Benny nodded so hard his lollipop almost fell out of his mouth. "It's the best night of the whole year." The ghost gasped, twirling in the air like a spinning top. "I have to do it. I have to." But then his smile faded. "Wait. If people see a real ghost floating at their doorstep, they'll scream and run away." Sam tapped his chin. "Not if we give you a costume." Mia grinned. "That's perfect. Everyone will just think you're another kid in a ghost outfit." Benny giggled. "But he is a ghost in a ghost outfit." The next night, the kids worked together to disguise their new friend. They tied a bright red cape around his shoulders, painted little stars on his cheeks with glow-in-the-dark paint, and even gave him a trick-or-treat bucket shaped like a pumpkin. When the ghost floated in front of the mirror, he nearly cried with joy. "I don't look scary at all," he whispered. "I look fun." That Halloween night, he floated beside his new friends, bouncing with excitement as they approached the first house. He rang the bell, held out his bucket, and said in his sweetest little voice, "Trick or treat." And what happened next made the ghost's eyes go as wide as lollipops. The door creaked open, and a cheerful woman stepped outside holding a giant bowl of candy. She looked at the kids, then at the little ghost in his cape. "Oh my goodness, what an adorable costume!" She laughed. "Here, take extra." She dropped a mountain of candy into his bucket until it nearly overflowed. The ghost's eyes sparkled brighter than the moon. "Oh, no way, it actually worked," he whispered. House after house, the same thing happened. Nobody screamed. Nobody ran. Everyone just thought he was the sweetest little trick-or-treater they had ever seen. By the end of the night, the ghost's pumpkin bucket was so heavy he had to float extra high just to carry it. Chocolate bars, gummy worms, caramel popcorn, candy corn, he had more than he could even eat in 100 years. But something even better happened. Instead of just floating silently through the night like before, he laughed, he joked, he ran, well, floated alongside Sam, Mia, and Benny, shouting "trick or treat" at the top of his ghostly lungs. The kids weren't just his partners in candy collecting, they were his first real friends. And soon, word spread through the neighborhood about the funny little ghost in the red cape. By the end of Halloween night, everyone was talking about him not as a monster to be feared, but as the star of the celebration. The ghost had finally found a place where he didn't need to hide, a place where being himself was enough. When the night finally came to an end, the kids sat in a circle on Sam's porch, dumping out their candy bags into glowing piles. The little ghost floated above his mountain of treats, spinning with pure joy. "This," he said with a mouthful of marshmallows, "is the greatest night of my entire afterlife." The kids laughed so hard their bellies ached. Mia wiped a tear from her eye. "See, you don't have to be scary to be special." Sam nodded. "Sometimes the best ghosts aren't the ones who haunt houses, but the ones who share candy." And little Benny held out his last lollipop. "Here. Friends share, right?" The ghost's eyes shimmered as he took it gently. "Friends?" he whispered. Finally, from that night on, the old house at the edge of town wasn't a place people feared anymore. It became the spot where kids would gather, giggling and sharing candy with the ghost who loved sweets more than scares. And if you ever visit that neighborhood on Halloween, don't be surprised if you see a chubby little ghost in a red cape, his pumpkin bucket overflowing with candy, and hear his happy giggles echoing in the night. And that's the tale of the ghost who loved candy more than scares. A ghost who didn't need to haunt or frighten, because laughter, friendship, and a giant pile of sweets were much better than all the booze in the world. So remember this. Not every ghost wants to scare you. Some just want a lollipop, a chocolate bar, or maybe even a friend like you. Now here's a question for you. If a ghost knocked on your door on Halloween night, would you share your candy with him? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this funny, spooky story, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Share it with your friends and subscribe for more ghostly giggles every week. Until next time, keep your candy safe and keep your eyes open, because you never know when a sweet-toothed ghost might float by.